very welcome to my work table. Today I am working on a really chic, really contemporary, really innovative, I hope. I normally do a prototype when I'm doing a design like this, but I decided to bring you guys along on the design journey this time because I did not even do a sketch. I literally have sort of worked this out in my head, how this is going to work. So what you see here is some necklace memory wire, and I'll show you. I will link this below. It is round, so the circumference of the wire itself is round, and it is extra heavy duty diameter. So it comes in gold and silver. I'm working with silver today because I had this connector bar which has 6 holes through it, and it was silver and had silver rhinestones. So I'm going to do this whole piece in silver. But I have to say that in one of our bead boxes last year, we got some memory wire that's unmarked. I would guess that this is medium diameter, I mean. For this, to me, this is a little bit too flimsy and too small of a circumference for this design to really look contemporary and chic and kind of like modern art. This sleek, a little bit chunkier, like silver metal line to me is part of the design. But I did consider using this one, and the bending that I needed to do to make this happen was much easier on this smaller diameter. But I did think that, well, if I'm going to use this, I would probably want to string on like some silver seed beads or cube beads and just kind of, you know, add something to this, where with the thicker one I have opted to leave it plain. But basically what I did here, and I laid it out so you can see where I'm going. Basically what I did is took 2 halves of a coil of memory wire, and of course you can always snip some off later, and I just pulled one of the sides, leaving this back part round, and I just worked this. If you're not familiar with memory wire, it is a stainless steel cable, so you can reshape it, but then it holds its shape after you reshape it. So that is basically what I did, and I kept playing with this, putting it down until I could see that this was going to curve around and back into my bar. So I've opted not to use this smaller diameter. This is the one I'm going to be working with. And again, for those of you who are brand new to the concept of working with memory wire, you definitely need special cutters because you will absolutely destroy your regular jewelry cutters if you try to cut that. And especially for this extra heavy duty diameter, I highly recommend memory wire pliers there, or snub nose pliers. They give you a lot more strength. If you can see this kind of boxy joint here, it gives you a lot more strength, and we will be turning a loop on each end here, and I just really don't like to stress my finer, you know, my Zuron, or I have another beautiful, I just got these, you know, they're just really fine tips, and I really don't want to stress them. So if you don't have these, maybe try an older pair of pliers that you don't care about so much. So that's what I use to cut my 2 halves. And then what I'm going to do, I wanted to introduce you to the project, and I'm going to be doing some gluing, and then I'll pause. It'll just be a second for you, and I'll come back and we'll finish it up together. But I think I'm going to be doing my final drop of this amethyst silver plated framed little faceted. It's really like a really pillowy, softly faceted little gemstone that I had in my stash. And I went through my beads. I actually had, let's see if I have it here. I think this is a craft store item. I don't even remember where I got this, but I'm showing you this because almost any statement beads or beads that you love will work for this project. But I went into my stash, there were all these, the colors match, but all these different shapes, and I have settled on these. But I also, like, this was also from that stash, so I even thought about doing like this one here. I played around with it. I even had these little faceted little hexagon beads, and I thought about even doing like a little stop sign on either side. So I'm just showing you that because if you like the idea of this project, you can really choose whatever you like. But I ended up from that little mix choosing these two almost flower-like beads, and I'm going to do the smaller one at the top here and the larger one here, and then I have these little Tibetan spacers, and I'm going to do those to finish this off. So when I string this, like, this is going to get glued on the end, and then I'm going to glue this little spacer also right on the end, and the same thing here, just so that it looks really finished and really beautiful. Now you could also use the actual end caps that are made for memory wire. They come in a set like this, small, medium, and large, gold, and like a stainless steel color. And these are literally the glue in caps for the ends of memory wire when you don't want to turn a loop, like if you're making a bracelet or something. So those could be useful too, but I really like the little design, the little rope edge on these spacer beads that I had. So that's what I have opted to do. And then my other idea, I will be putting a clasp on the back with jump rings, and I will need jump rings for down here where I'm going to attach this to the bottom of my bar. So let me show you what this bar looks like. Let me disconnect everything and kind of show you what this bar looks like. So I cannot remember where I got this, but I think this is from one of my trips to a bead shop. But it is this really cool connector bar with 6 like possible holes, which is really good because you know, I want this to sit flat on the neck, you know, and hang nicely. I don't want it to be sort of like one side tugging away from the other side. So that gives me a lot of options for connecting. But if you don't have anything like this in your supplies and you want to try this project, there are some other things you can do. Even a connector bar like this that just has 2 holes in it, you could replace that, put this you know, put this through here, and then you would have to stretch this down more. You may have to find the right size thing. I also had these connector bars with 3 holes. This would be a bit shorter, so one would get glued in there and one would get glued in here, and you'd have that look. You could also take an elongated bead, a cylinder bead. I had these purple elongated like rectangle beads, and you could run a piece of wire and do a loop at the top and at the bottom, and that could be your connection where the 2 pieces meet. So I just wanted to give you some options, and if I can find these in an order and I can link these, I will do that when I edit the video, because they really are pretty and they make this really sparkly. So I'm going to start out with, I've already done a loop on this side, and I'm going to do a loop on this side here, show you how that I do that with my snub nose pliers. I was actually thought I had put them back and they're right here in front of my face. One thing I have learned about memory wire is that if I am rolling toward me, I have a little bit more control of it. And since it is very hard to readjust, that is really a good thing. So I am going to start off, let me start off since this is extra heavy duty. I'm going to start off with this larger mandrel and really making sure I have a good grip here and just start getting a roll in there. This is really hard on my hands. So like I say, if you want to do a medium diameter memory wire for this and then maybe fill it with seed beads or a little cube bead or something, you know, that's a second option. So I'm just going to, oh man, this is tough. This extra heavy duty is it is hard on my wrist. But since I only have 2 loops to turn, I decided to go for it. Let's get it in there. So like that's pretty much all the strength I have with that. But you can come in with your pliers and finish closing your loop. Just have to get a hold of it just right. There, I got it. Okay, So now I am going to go ahead and add my clasp to the back. I'm going to put I'm right-handed, so I'm going to put the lobster claw on that loop that I just turned and put this large jump ring over here. And I have another idea. Again, as I say, I did not do a prototype of this design. I only worked this out in my head and then laid it out on my mat, and I feel good about it. I feel like I can make this lay properly. But another thing that I've pulled from my stash, this was in fact just in my Potomac Beads treasure box, and it's just a length of curb chain, and I was thinking that when I connect everything on the front, if it is not sitting exactly right, if I need a little bit more movement in the back, to do like some extender chain at the back of the neck. So I've already been kind of troubleshooting in case this doesn't exactly lay beneath the collarbone the way that I would like it to. But for now, I'm just going to start by getting the clasp on. And I may even, in fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and add a second jump ring. Jump rings just add a lot of movement. And then, like I said, if it's just not doing what I would like for it to do, I am going to come back then with chain and see if I can make it behave. But I'm going to hope for the best. So that's what my back of my necklace is going to look like, and so that gives me a little bit of movement here for connecting. So what I'm going to do is thread on, I believe I worked out that this goes on the first hole and the third hole. So like I said, for me, I had this bar with all these stringing options, and now I'm going to use some E6000. Get my tube. I have a tube that I need to use up, and this does take a little bit to set up, so I'm just going to not worry about any placement, but for right now just get these glued on. So just take a little like dollop of glue. I also like the Gel Control super glue for things like this. You know, it's just a good glue, and you have a little bit of control because it is gel. It's not so liquidy. But today I decided to use this one, and it is a good idea to have a toothpick or a little scrap of wire. I keep some little scraps here to clean up after you have put everything in place. So I'm just going to take away that excess glue, but I'm going to use it on the tip here, some of it. Just going to put some right there, and then put my little finished piece on the end, and just set that to dry facing forward. I can see that I still have cleanup to do. And sometimes I even use two glues. Sometimes I'll do the E6000 and come back for some security with the gel super glue if I don't feel like it's really holding. But the E6000 is great for a project like this because you have time. It dries a little bit rubbery, and you have time before it starts sitting up, so you can, get things like I want this bead to be kind of facing like that. So I'm going to let that set up, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing right here on this one. And if you were using the little end caps that are made for memory wire, either one of these glues, I've used it many times to like finish the ends of bracelets. Either one of these, the E6000 or the gel super glue, they both work really well. Okay, I am just going to leave this laying on my mat. It will not be very long for you, but I'm going to let this sit up, have some dinner, and come back and we will finish this off. I'll actually, when it's set up, I am going to try it on and decide if I am going to want to add some chain to the back, because that would also give me a little bit more length in the front. And then this is a simple connecting. In fact, I could have done this first because this little thing will simply connect right there. But here's where you have a lot of options with this design, because you could take something like this, like a drop, and wire wrap it and make a little teardrop. I mean, that is really pretty. Let me move it up. That's really pretty too. But I had this in my stash, so you know, I think I'm going to use that one. So it'll just be a second for you. We'll let this dry and I'll be back. Okay, so it is the next day and this is really set up nicely. I did go back with some of the gel Loctite super glue, and I just added a little tiny bit at the base of these beads, just because as you're taking this piece on and off, there may be a little bit of stress on there. So I just wanted to make sure that it was secure. And I almost forgot, really good news. Last night, while this was drying, I was able to find my order for these connector bars. So a link for these will be in the description box of this video, as well as a couple of other things. Oh, my ice machine is making noise in the background. Sorry, you guys, if it's loud in the microphone. So I also have tried this on, and it is wonderful. It sits beautifully. It's wonderful, but it is more of a choker length without having any chain back here. And that is not my favorite style of necklace. I will wear one from time to time, but I am going to add chain on. So I just cut a couple of lengths of curb chain and a couple of extra lengths on this side, and that should spread this out and drop this focal point down. But I can go ahead before I do that, and I've put one jump ring on my little pendant here because the connection for this, it's just a matter of the orientation, a matter of the direction. So let me grab this jump ring. It took two to get that pendant to be facing forward, but if you do the other option where you do like a teardrop that's wire wrapped, then you may not even have to use a second jump ring, but you know, you just do what you need to do to get this to face forward. So let me close this really well. And oh, I had something else to tell you. When I get in the creative mode, and you know, it's hard to be patient waiting for things to dry, I actually designed a pair of earrings that are amazing. So simple, but so clever. I think they are. I love them. I actually love them as much as the way this is turning out. They are contemporary and flirty, and I just love them. So all I'm going to do back here is just open these jump rings and add chain on to both sides. So let me just do that real quick. A little bit of space behind my neck. But there are several ways to make the length of this right. And I am not even totally sure that I won't make further adjustments to it, but you could actually add a few jump rings on this chain, like one at the end, one in the middle, and then one down here, and then have just the lobster claw clasp over here, maybe with a few links, and then it could connect at any of those measurements. You know, there's a lot of ways to make something adjustable, but when I tried this on, I just felt like this might even be too long, but I'll go try it on again. But for all intents and purposes, this stunning, beautiful, contemporary, it's just elegant, it's chic, it's unusual, it's interesting. It is a bold statement, but it's not heavy or crazy. I absolutely love the way it turned out. So I will go try this on myself and see if I want to make some final adjustments, just because this is so unusual and I do want it to lay flat, like just beneath my collarbone. But I'll put some pictures up at the end, and I'll definitely put this in my next try on video because this is going to be a really fun one. And the earrings, I also may have to put some pictures up for you to see them because they are so cool, but I think laying flat on my mat, they may be a little bit difficult for you to really see how cool they are. But I took a connector bar, one that has 3 holes, and I played with jump ring sizes. And I cannot tell you the millimeters because I don't remember, but I used my 6-step bail making plier to create the different sizes. And I'll show you what, how to do jump rings in case you have never seen me do that before. But there are 1, 2, 3, 4 different sizes of jump rings on here. And so I took a couple more beads from that mix that I showed you. It just, if you have a bead mix, I can actually get lost in bead mixes. So if you have a bead mix, that's got just a whole bunch of variations of sizes and shapes, but all the colors coordinate, that would be perfect for this project, which is exactly what I did to come up with this. You could have even done the drop, but I decided to use that. And then these little kind of rondelle shaped beads were in that mix. And I am just going to take a piece of 20 gauge wire, and I used my 1.5 millimeter 1-step looper. And I'm just going to put that wire in. There's no beads on, so I only need to go past this back jaw where the tool makes a fresh, clean cut for me. So with my cutters, I don't have to do that because the tool just made that fresh cut. And then I don't know if you saw what I did, but I just pulled this wire down so that I can see the loop is centered on my wire, and I just, while it's still in the tool and I have control here, I warm and straighten, and when I take the tool away, I have this perfect little simple loop. And now I am simply going to place that bead on the wire, and I do want my opening of my loops to be going in the same direction on this particular piece. So the 1-step looper always makes the loops going upward. So I have this one going upward on this side, and I'm going to hold it like that. This time putting it back in the tool through that guide hole that's in the back of the tool. If I can find it. Come on, wire. There we go. My wire has a little bend to it. So then I'm just going to gently close. That is too close. The bead is too close to the front jaw of the plier, so I'm just going to back it away. So there's a little bit of space, and I'm using the guide hole. And once again, the tool's going to make a fresh blunt cut for me right there. And I can take that extra wire. There's actually a whole nother component in that little scrap of wire. And I'm still maintaining control. As you can see, I haven't closed this loop all the way. I do see people like popping this tool closed, but you just don't have control if you do that. And for me, my advice with wire working of any kind is to go slowly. You get a better result. So I'm still not closed all the way because I can see that this loop will not be centered on the wire or centered with this loop. So as I close, I'm just going to pull that down, and now I can see that I didn't put any stress on my bead. There's still that little bit of space, and my 2 loops are lined up. If they're misaligned in any way, you can always take another pair of pliers, almost using this as a plier, and make that little correction. And actually I see I want to pull it down just a tiny bit more. So I just love my 1-step looper, but if you don't have it or you've never been successful with it, you can always get your simple loops in here with your round nose pliers and your regular pliers. So let's start connecting. Here's the little connector bar, and this is just like simple connection. I am going to use, let's see, I've got them mixed up in my sizes here. Is this the size? This is the size that, and it goes through the top hole, and I just had to, you will have to open it pretty wide for these connector bars, and I will link these below as well. They are 2-sided and they have 3 holes. They're just so much fun to play with, and I found these as well when I was searching. So I'm just going to get that jump ring through, and all I did is choose a size that would clear and still move, clear the top of this connector bar, if that makes sense. Let me close it, and so you can see it's not even closed yet, and it's already like swinging freely. Just make sure it's closed really well, and so you can see that even with my pliers in the way, that my little connector bar is free and loose in there. And so from there, actually I meant to I meant to, while that jump ring was open, go ahead and add my ear wire, but these ear wires they're stainless steel and you can open them right here. Just gently pull that back and I'll go ahead and place that jump ring. We'll just build it from the ear wire down. Okay, so the beginning of the earring is done. And so to make this little, I don't even know what to call it, almost like a trapeze, where two jump rings are connecting this. It's super simple, but I only have one jump ring made, and let me make sure that I know which size. Yeah, use the largest step on the 6-step bail making plier for that particular jump ring. So if you've never seen me make jump rings before, I have a nice clean blunt cut on my wire, and I'm going to place my wire in so that I don't feel the end of the wire, and I'm just going to wrap around. And if you're using a 6-step bail making plier and you need quite a few jump rings, you have to remember to coil your wire toward the handle so that you have enough space to get as many as you need. I only need 2, I think, so this will be perfect. And then I take my cutters and go to the beginning, whoops, if I can hold on to it, go to the beginning of my coil and just snip. There's one, and there's the second one. And then just throw away the little scrap. Okay, so the next thing I will do is open this large jump ring and put it through one of these simple loops that we made on one side of the component. It's really important with a connecting project like this that you take your time and close things really well. And I even, once I get this, I even work harden my jump rings and just make sure they're closed, put the pliers inside. This won't get a lot of stress, but it is important that all the things be closed well. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side of this component. And now here's the cool part. I'm going to pull these 2 jump rings together with another jump ring. So I went down on my bail making plier to the middle size, the second to the smallest size, to make these. And I did them the same way. And I'm just going to gather up, I need to open it just a tiny bit more. So I'm just going to gather up both of those large jump rings in this jump ring. See if I can get my fingers out of the way. So just like that, and close this really well. Don't you just love jump ring art? And then I went down to even the next tiniest size on the mandrel. I went down to this little smallest mandrel on the 6-step bail making plier to make a teeny tiny little jump ring. I'm going to open it nice and wide and get a hold of this little component at that jump ring. That's going to go on the large jump ring, and then that's the final connection. Just going to open this and put this large one through the bottom hole of that connector bar to kind of wiggle it in there. But now that I had added my ear wire, I do need to make sure that everything's facing the way I want and close that really well and work harden a little bit. It still needs a little attention. There we go. And that little earring is done. It's just a really, really fun connecting project. I just love it. It's so sweet. I will put some pictures up at the end because I know the camera angle this way is terrible for you to see the design of this earring, but it's almost like a little contemporary trapeze act, and the circles, all the different sizes, kind of just working their way down the earring. It's fun and flirty. It has so much movement, but I realize they don't look like much on the beading mat. So the last thing that I will do is just take a little plastic anything, and I like to coat everything with my anti-tarnish coating, my Permalac. So these are stainless steel, so they don't need it, but it is a really thin, super fast drying anti-tarnish coating, and especially I find on silver findings, especially, they need it. So I just, it's easier than polishing your nails, honestly, because you don't have to even be that precise. You can lay it down, you can do it in your hand. I'll do both sides. I don't need to do the jump rings because I use the Soft Flex. I lost the name of my favorite wire, the Soft Flex wire that has an anti-tarnish coating on it. So I don't need to pay attention to brush all the jump rings, but I will do, let's see, is there anything else on here? All of that is out of the anti-tarnish wire. So it's really just those little connector bars, and you could honestly do this ahead of making your earrings. I have the habit of brushing my anti-tarnish coating on things at the end of my work and just letting it sit to dry. But you could do it either way. I don't always know all the things that are going to go into one of my projects, so I tend to save this step for the end. And then on this piece, I definitely will do the chain and definitely this connector bar, and also my little end caps, well, these spacer beads that I used for end caps, and just make sure that I brush the side all the way up, and I'll just show you how I do. Just to very simply just get a little coating on any of the metal findings. They're fashion jewelry, and if you listen to stylists, they will tell you that a fashion jewelry piece is only supposed to last one season. You wear it with a few outfits and then it's out. But when I hand make something, I want it to last longer than that. So I always do this little step. And like I say, for me, I just find it's easier to do it at the end of the piece. I'll even sometimes take my pliers. And the cool thing about the Permalac, if you can notice, I'm brushing it right over the crystals on my connector bar. And if you get these semi-gloss, it will not cloud the crystals. Now, I have a friend who didn't pay attention in her order, and she got the matte because it comes in matte as well, and it did cloud something that she, that was supposed to sparkle, and it got brushed over and it did cloud it. But I need to just move this one a little bit so I can get in here. There we go. So that's all I do. I'm just making sure that I go down the sides of the piece and that all the metal findings are coated. And if you accidentally brush this over a bead or over a crystal, it dries totally clear. You don't see it. Let me pull this up and show you. So I did brush all the way down. Whoops, sorry, I'm not in the camera. I did brush all the way down both sides. And let me just show you. I always link this in the description box because it is such a great selling feature. If you sell your work, it is a great thing to add to your listing that all of your metal findings have an anti-tarnish coating. It's a selling point. It's very inexpensive, but this one you can see here is labeled semi-gloss. When you order, it's also available in matte, which you may want matte for certain beads or certain things that you're working with, but I always use the semi-gloss and I use it for both things. So that is my final little step. I will let this dry a little bit and take some really good pictures and put them up. Don't forget to tap more underneath this video, and then my description boxes are quite large. I work really hard on them, so you often have to type more again depending on what device you're on to see everything that's there. I always list my favorite tools and anything that I've taken from my stash that I know where I got it, I list that to save you some time if you're interested in doing the project. But I always love to know, I get messages, if you make this your own, if you do something different for the downward rod, if you come up with something different with your beads, I'd love to hear that. So I hope you got inspired. I hope that this was, something interesting and new, and this is so not labor intensive. I love this project because it came together really fast. I just had to be patient for the drying of my glue. But I thank you so much for watching. I hope everybody's safe and well and having fun on your beading mats. Ciao, creative friends.